Welcome to episode 18 of Sustainable Photography. This episode is about pricing and making sure that your business can withstand the test of time. As you probably know, most photographers tend to undercharge for their services, and today I'm talking with Kine Bakke, also known as Kick-Ass Kine, about just that. You should also know that we're planning an in-person workshop, so I'll also mention that throughout this episode. You're listening to Sustainable Photography, where you get support and education to build your profitable business in a way that supports your way of living. I'm Ingvild Kolnes, and after 11 years as a photographer, I want to share what I've learned with you. So if you're looking for confidence, inspiration, and to-the-point tips, keep listening. For full transparency, I also want you to know that I'm a mentor with paid offers, and I might mention some of those in this episode. Kine and I met digitally a few years ago, and we've since met a few times in real life as well. I've learned a lot from her when it comes to pricing and the way you have to consider your expenses and unforeseen events when you calculate your prices. Kine actually started her photography journey about 12 years ago, and she's done it all. Kids, newborns, weddings, portraits. It took her a good while to find her style and even longer to figure out what she wanted to photograph, and too long to figure out how to run a profitable business. Now she mostly photographs for businesses and brands, do art projects, and the occasional wedding. She helps other photographers lay the base for their future business, with the hope that some of her experiences can help others grow faster and better than she did herself. So, hi Kine, I'm so happy to have you here on the podcast. Can you start by telling us more about you and how you got started and how you ended up as a photographer and online marketer?
I actually started up being a teacher. At first I thought I was going to be a professional flute player. So I actually have a bachelor's degree in flute playing.
What?
And then, yeah, I know. It's pretty weird, right? And at some point, my arms actually gave out. And that's kind of ironic because most photographers are like, my hands gave out. I had to find something new to do. Well, for me, it was music. And with a camera, I can always adapt to the situation. And I figured out I had to do something creative. And I can't really remember how the idea of being a photographer occurred. But all of a sudden, I bought myself a camera. I did some workshops. I did some classes. I did some one-on-one Photoshop courses and stuff like that. And poof, there I was, kind of just stumbled into it. Well, I thought I just stumbled into it. Figured out a few years into the business, an old pen pal of mine found me on Facebook because she saw my pictures somewhere. I don't know where. And she said, wow, your images are so cool. And no wonder you turned out being a photographer, because I remember when we were like 10 and 12 years old, you were always running around with your mom's camera. And I have actually no recognition of that whatsoever. Cannot remember ever stealing my mom's camera. And those were like in the old film days. So it cost a lot of money. Well, for us, it was a lot of money. It was like $10 to develop a film. And for my family, $10 was a lot. And then you had to buy new film and everything. And then my mom and dad passed away quite a few years ago. And I found an old backpack with all her negatives in it. So I started looking through all the pictures in all the different files she had. And there's like, she always doubled up on every copy she made.
My mom did the same thing.
And so I scrolled through them, and it was like, oh, look at this nice family picture. Look at this, a Christmas party. Look at this 17th of May. And then it would be like 24 to 30 pictures of a dog's ass or a blurry duck or a cat running, and you just have to presume it's a cat because it's the right size and it has a tail and it's black, and I had a black cat. And I found like a shitload of pictures like that, which would mean I stole my mom's camera and took a lot of pictures. I had no idea what I was doing. I just loved taking pictures. And she had to develop the film because there would be like 4, 5, 6 pictures there from Christmas or a birthday party or anything. So she had to develop it because she needed those 6 pictures. But then she got like 30 pictures of dogs' asses included. And they were all blurry, nothing in focus. So I guess I've always been photographing, but I'm not one of those photographers that actually have like a recognition of, oh, I always loved it. Just I have the proof that I did it. I just can't remember that I actually did it. And I always crave knowledge though. So that's how I came into the digital marketing. Love social media, playing around. I'm not afraid to play around. I think that's why I'm turning out to be successful in marketing, because I'm not scared of doing stupid things. Like half of what I do in social media is like flopping. But then again, I know that, okay, I did this at this point with this tools, not going to do it again. And then all of a sudden you get better because you get a huge bank of not to do's. And I like the challenge too. I love the challenge. And the old teacher in me, of course, has never died. And she still likes to teach people how to do things and how to think and how to twist their brains to get new ideas. Things I say isn't necessarily like a universal truth. By all means, like you should never take anyone's word for granted, I guess, or trust 100% in anything. You have to find your own way, but I like to think that I can help people finding that way or finding their voice in their business, because my way is certainly not like the best way of any kind to do anything, but I like to think that I have some knowledge that could help people finding their solutions.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinguishment, that some people, they just teach this is the right way or this is the only way, and others try to find the right way for that specific person. That's an important difference.
I think it is, and I always like the teachers that said that this is a possible solution. Like in math, I had a teacher in high school, and she was very determined to teach one way of doing equations, and it was like her way or the highway. And I had a hard time following her on her path. And then my cousin, he was really good at math, and he said, well, you can do it this way instead. It was something like with doing adding and subtractions instead of dividing and multiplying. I don't remember, but I remember I loved doing it his way, and everything added up, and I could develop it as the tasks grew like more and more difficult. But the reports I got back from the teacher was that you're not doing it the correct way. Your results are good, but the way you're doing it is not textbook. And then he gave me his copy of his textbook from high school, and his way was like lined up in that textbook. And so that created quite some disturbance in class when I tried to argue with my teacher on how to do equations, but but it's kind of like that in real life too, that there's all this different roads you can do different types of photography on different levels on and choose different business strategies and different marketing strategies, and every one of those can be right, and it can lead you to the goal. Some are of course more effective than others, and some are very effective but not very ethically sane. I like thinking about morals and ethics of photography when I try to figure out how to do things, and some things are really, really effective but morally in a gray zone, ethically in a gray zone. And I always love those teachers that have like the ability to say that you can do it this way or this way, or this way? Which do you understand? Which resonates more with you? Maybe we should follow this road for you. And trying to find your own way. And so, some are more effective than others, obviously. Like when people guarantee you that you're going to make twice as much as you make today, that kind of sends a whole bunch of red flags waving by my eyes and ears, because I'm kind of hesitant to believe in that someone can actually promise that you're going to make more money, because all the risks, all the different factors that has to add up for you to actually double your income it's so complex. It has to do with you and your mindset. It has to do with the area you're in. It has to do with your skills, of course. And you can be a pretty mediocre photographer, like really basic mediocre, nothing about your pictures really, and make a shit ton of money as long as you're a good salesperson. And that can be a good strategy for people that actually like sales. And it could be a good strategy if you're more, I wouldn't call it narcissistic, but kind of more, if you have that whole salesy mindset, more pushy nature, that could work for you. I am not one of those people, but I can acknowledge that it works with others. It does work. Seriously, it does work. I'm more of a, please make sure that your skill set is good enough for actually selling photography to people, because sometimes it's a lot of money for many people, and I want them to look at the pictures that they get from me now and still like them in 30 years. Imagine taking pictures of a family, and then the mother of the family picks up her camera in 5 years and starts taking pictures, and then she develops photography skills and gets pretty good, and then she looks at her family pictures when her kids were small, and then the pictures start losing value to her because she can see that you're actually not technically skilled, or that you did some shortcuts. So I'm more of a person that I like that people like to learn. And when you talk to me, I'm probably going to tell you that you need to up your lighting game, or you need to work on poses. And some people like to hear it straightforward. Others don't. And I'm not the type of person to seek advice from if you can't stand to hear tiny little bit of truth regarding your skill set. But then again, there's a lot of good photographers that makes little to no money. And that's because I think that they have no percenta of that salesy, pushy attitude that you can see that some people do have.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what, like those true creatives, they're more like honest, and they're in it to create and to be artistic, and then they're probably the most talented ones, and then they stay invisible and don't get anywhere. And that's what always hurts me the most, when I see really talented photographers being invisible or not, or giving up because they can't make a living, and then here I am, and I get more inquiries than I can handle, and I'm not that good of a photographer compared to those that just live for it, because I spend my time perfecting like my teaching to others, not my photography. So I think it's really unfair that it's like that.
I know, right? And it's quite funny that for some of us, the actual phrase that those who can't do teach is actually quite accurate on some of us. I like to think that I can do both, but if I have to be honest, I think I am probably a better teacher than I am a photographer. But then again, I grew up. I figured that I'd like to stay in my studio, photograph dead squirrels in all the weirdness of my art. I do weird art things now, and I love it, because then I can combine my engagement in social studies and politics with creating art of some kind, which resonates good with me. And there's no money in it, of course, if you're not the salesy, pushy, creative business mind that some are. So I have to learn how to actually make money off of art if I want to pursue that line of my life, which I probably will. But then again, I live in a small town, so I'm kind of obligated to take pictures of kids and some weddings and some real estate, and I do that too. But I love like taking pictures of vases and mugs and cups for businesses and creating art. And I love creating wedding pictures if the couple is down to earth and prefers pictures of drunken grandma over shoes. Making money as a creative is it's hard, and I try to help the creators to make money without necessarily having to be a salesperson. A lot of my clients, a lot of the photographers that reach out and need help, they tell me that I am not a salesperson, but I've come to the conclusion that if I want to do this professionally, I need to make money. How can I make money?
That's often the hardest part, for many at least. Since this podcast is called Sustainable Photography, I have to ask you what you think a sustainable business is.
A sustainable business is a business where you can look at your end goal and you can see that you reached it and then some. I see that when people calculate their prices, they forget some factors that are catching them by surprise by the end of the year. All of a sudden, there's like maybe the financial advisor that they have sends them an invoice and they haven't calculated that. Or some kid got sick during the year, so they lost money off of that because they didn't calculate in kids being sick. Or a mom being sick, or actually having holidays that they're having a hard time figuring out how can I do 2 weeks with my family in Puerto Rico because I can't afford really anything, and then they start relying on other family members. And it's sad to say so, but even in Norway, I still see women relying on their husbands for income. And of course the picture is complex. Of course it is. It's about self-value. It's about if you're a risk taker or not. If you're into psychology, you can read about risk takers and people that do everything safely. Most women are not risk takers. That's why we save our money in secure places instead of stocks. I think that you can be content. You don't have to like be a world champion of any kind. You just have to make sure that you are content and in a safe place. You need to look at your numbers and say that I have saved up for retirement. I have a retirement fund. I have at least a 10% surplus with money you don't actually know what to do with, but it's there. You don't have, it's not your paycheck, it's not your savings, it's not anything. It's just money that's there to do what you want to do with it. It's kind of like your safety net, your safety money, but do not confuse that with actually putting aside money for sickness, health issues, having to take time off, making sure that you can actually follow your mom to oncology if she gets sick. And I know that there's a lot of Facebook groups out there that can help you like have a 3 million, 4 million business. Just like that. Just with pulling the right strings and doing the right tricks. But a sustainable business doesn't have to be a $4 million business. It can be $300,000 business. Or even $150,000 business. And you can be happy if that makes you happy.
I agree. And I also think it's so much about how you spend the money that's coming in and not just about how much is coming in. So yeah, definitely agree. And one thing that when I think about you, Kine, is I think about your pricing workshops. And I know you're very passionate about pricing. So I just want to ask you, like, why is pricing so important? Why can't I just charge whatever I want? Like, why do I have to think about it?
Well, I started up 12 years ago thinking that you can just set a price, just whatever, like 5,000 kronas, equivalent to what, $500, was a lot of money. And of course, it is a lot of money. Of course, it is a lot of money. But then I started thinking, like after a year doing low pricing, that I'm actually not making any money because off of that $500, there's taxes. You have 25 goes to the state, just for like making money, and 10% goes to savings because you need healthcare if you get sick, and you always have the choice to give those to an insurance company or save up, and money's gone either way. And then I started figuring out, okay, if a wedding is 5,000 Norwegian kroner, $500, how much time do I spend doing this? And then I figured out that if I spend 20 hours doing this wedding, I net a total of 200 and something dollars to put in my bag at the end of the day, which all of a sudden is not that much money, especially if you compare it to like a normal teacher salary, which would give me like $100 a day to do teaching. So I set myself a goal. If I was going to do this, I had to be able to at least earn the same amount photographing that I did teaching. And that's where my road started. And of course, my love for Excel spreadsheets
We share that love.
comes in handy when I first started calculating things. And it's so ironic though, because I do not do my own accounting. I hate accounting. That is like the worst thing in my whole life is accounting. And I know people that are like, oh, but it's so nice looking the numbers. Oh, they all line up. Oh, look, it's so fancy and satisfying. And I'm like, I hate it. I can actually feel my soul die when I look at accounting spreadsheets. So I figured out quite quickly that, and I tried on and off to do it myself. And being the daughter of an accountant, I should probably make my mom proud and do it myself. And I know how to do it, and I even know how to do it like in an old accountant book. I know how to do it. I really, really hate it. So, but like doing calculations on pricing and budgets and stuff like that, that I like. That is really, really, really fun and satisfying. And yeah. And looking at like differences between this year and next year, and how I'm going to change things, and how my pricing is going to affect my bottom line, and all of that stuff. Oh, that's so fun. It is the best time of year. And it's all about me and my business. And I figured out, okay, I have to figure out how am I going to put all my expenses into the equation and figure out how much money I need to spend on the different types of work I do. So I started just figuring out, okay, how much do I want to work? And I do these basic things in my workshops. Figuring out how much do you want to work? Not how much can you work, but how much do you want to work? And some people say, I don't want to work more than 6 hours a day, and I don't want to work more than 40 weeks a year. And some people say, oh, I can do 12 hours a day, and I can do 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I'm like, yeah, well, good luck with that. Meet you at the psychologist's office in 6 months. Because that's what's going to happen. At some point, you're going to burn yourself out. Or at some point, your wife is going to leave you, or your husband's going to leave you, or your mom's going to be concerned, or your kids can't even recognize you.
Kine will be right back after this. In a way, I guess you can say that this episode is sponsored by the in-person workshop Kine and I are planning. We have very different styles and approaches in the way we teach, but our goals and our values are very similar. In short, we want you to succeed without having detours of being broke and burnt out, and we don't believe that there's a one right way for everyone. We know that most photographers' marketing efforts are quite random, and many are wasting so much time looking at what everyone else is doing. You are you, and you need to do things your way. So, this spring, you're welcome to attend the very first in-person workshop with us. It'll be in April in Norway, so make sure you sign up to the waitlist for more information. You can find the link in the show notes.
I listened to a heartfelt, it was Jonas Peterson on Way Up North some years ago that talked about all his traveling. It was about destination weddings before destination weddings became a huge thing. He was destination king in a period there some years ago. And he spoke so heartfelt and open about all of the things that you have to, or that you will miss. Not have to miss, but all the things you will miss if you pursue a career in destination weddings. And that is what you want to do. You have to be open with yourself and see what you are probably going to lose. You're going to lose family time. Maybe you lose out actually having kids because you can't even meet someone along the road. But then again, on the other hand, some people have made it happen. Some people bring their kids, they do homeschooling, they bring their spouses along for the ride. So it's all about like figuring out your path. But anyways, I can say something about destination wedding prices though.
Mm-hmm.
Stop stealing customers from the local photographers, people.
Thank you.
It is the worst thing I have ever seen. We have like in Lofoten, huge place up north in Norway, beautiful scenery, wild mountains. It's the ocean straight out the hotel door. It's like, it's magic up there. And there's a shit ton of good photographers up there that is losing money because foreigners or Oslo people or anyone from south of Trondheim is doing photography up there for next to nothing just because it is Lofoten. We're actually screwing around with our own colleagues. And then you can always say, well, the client can choose their photographer and maybe they didn't like the style of the local. But seriously, when the locals are priced at a healthy level that they need to be to make money off of their living, and then you come from the outside saying that I'll do it for food and travel, how can you even compete? There's like no chance you can compete with people that actually do their wedding for free just for food and travel. And it makes
this goes
me
for
mad.
all over. Mm-hmm.
It
I've
goes
seen that
for
in
all
so
over.
many places.
Like in Iceland, right? Beautiful local photographers in Iceland is losing a lot of business because people like you and me do it for travel. Maybe we should just call the airline companies and say that you need to raise the prices every time you see someone with a photography bag trying to enter the plane. Oh, sorry, you forgot about the extra fee for that photo camera. That would be $10,000. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I see that. Like even photographers coming from the US, like I'm going to be traveling around Europe for 4 months and I'll do photography for nothing while I'm there. So just let me know. And it's like, but you're kind of missing the point that there are already photographers in Europe and they are getting paid, and you wouldn't like it if someone came to your area and wanted to shoot for free there, because you're ruining the market basically.
Yeah. If you want to do a portfolio building, I'm all for that. But then you should reach out to the local photographers and say, hi, I am on a 4-month sabbatical in Europe. I would so love to be your second shooter, or I would so love to be your assistant. Can I please tag along? And then you can ask to use a couple of those pictures just for portfolio building reasons. And then you can actually get paid too. Like if you manage to land a second shooter gig in Norway or France or Ukraine or wherever you're going, then you can actually be paid for the photography while on holiday and building your portfolio.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way of doing it. And I think it's also, there's a huge difference if I ask you, Kine, can I take pictures of you and your family for my portfolio? That's completely different from me advertising on Instagram and saying, I'm going to photograph someone for free. Let me know if you if you want the shoot, because then I'm
Yeah.
telling the world my services aren't worth anything. So here I am if you want it. So yeah, I think that's also a difference.
It is. It is. Anyways, pricing is difficult. It's
Yeah.
always difficult. And the factors that you have to count in are, I don't know, endless.
Mm.
And if you don't have any background in accounting or business development or business ecology or financial studies, then it can be hard. It can be really, really, really hard. And you can spend a lot of time figuring out how to do it correctly or the best way for you, or you can toss money at someone to actually help you. But then again, there's always the risk that you're tossing money at the wrong people. And that's a risk that maybe it's worth taking. And even money out the window is an experience that you can learn from, grow from.
True. Are there some mistakes that you see like over and over again, some repeat mistakes that you would say like this is the thing that most people get wrong in terms of pricing?
Well, in Norway, it's the ongoing I'll do your photos and you get 10 digitals included for a price next to nothing. And people actually lead their marketing strategies with being cheap. So it's not necessarily like just the pricing that's the problem, but it's actually using the already low prices to market themselves as a business, because that is a sinkhole it's hard to get out of that. If you like built your business on being cheap, getting out of that, it's super hard.
Yeah, that's what happened to me, because I started off being really cheap, but it wasn't like my intention to. I see now I did everything wrong, but I just saw what other photographers were charging and I was like, I am not as good as them. I need to charge less, and that was because I didn't want other photographers to look at me and be like, what is she thinking? She can charge the same as us. It was not thinking like I would get more clients if my prices were lower. But that didn't take very long until I realized that if I photographed one person's wedding for, let's say, 5,000, then the next year I would realize that, oh, I'm losing money here, and I would increase my prices. But then the friends of that bride and groom that got married the year before, they would ask me to photograph their wedding, and then they would be like, oh, you're so expensive now. So they wouldn't, and that happened every single year because I raised my prices too slowly, because I didn't know how to calculate my prices. So yeah, that is not a good idea, because then it will take you years to get out of it.
And I think that it's kind of funny though, because in your mind you were like, I have to keep my prices low so that other photographers won't think that I think that I'm someone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think that the other photographers maybe looked at you and thought, she's ruining the freaking market.
I know. I know now I know that. But at the time I had no idea, and I didn't know any other photographers. So I didn't have anyone to ask. So that whole thing of just when you're more of an established photographer, I think one of the most important things you can do to keep the market healthy is to get to know the new photographers and not like think that they're beneath you and you can't make friends with them, because you need to know someone who's more experienced and less experienced. Like they have to get together and talk about experiences, because If not, new people don't know what they're doing, and it's not their fault. I think in many cases, I don't think they know what they're doing, and it's kind of like we talked about before we started recording, that you don't know what you don't know. So you might start off thinking that you know what you're doing, and then you don't know that you don't
And
know.
funny thing is that once in a while, I reach out to photographers that I see are actually doing a good job. The work is decent enough. It's good. It's worth actually charging money for. Then I'll send them a text that says like, "Hi, I don't know if you know me, but I've been following you on Instagram. Your pictures are this and this, and I think that this picture is really, really nice. And I see that you have lighting skills and stuff, but your pricing average is not, it's like a hobby level to your pricing. Are you, I just wanted to give you a heads up that if you value yourself and your work and you want to make a living off of this, then I would strongly recommend that you take a class or talk to someone or figure things out." And funny thing is that some people are like, "Oh my God, thank you for the compliment. And I have really, really no idea what I'm doing, like money wise. And in the long run, I do want to work as a photographer." And then once in a while, not many times, but once in a while, maybe like 5% of the messages I send out, then I get the response, "I think that photographers are charging their clients way too much money. And I want to create a business where everyone can go to a photographer." Everyone. And it's so funny because in my mind, that reply tells me that you are quite history deprived. It has been tried and tried and tried again by businesses in Norway and abroad to actually build a sustainable business on the idea of people not paying that much money and paying cheap for their prints or their files. And thing is that you need so many clients and such a big turnaround that on some point you are going to go bankrupt. Like if you see the famed photographers in Norway, they had two setups, one sitting, one standing, white backdrop. Everyone had like white t-shirts and stonewashed jeans on, and everyone looked the same in every picture. And it has to be like that if you want to base your whole business around quantity and not quality, because you don't have time to adapt to every family or every person that comes in. You don't have time to get to know the people, to make portraits that actually tell something about the person you're portraying. You have to do like just a streamlined experience where you're more or less doing everything that you would do on a conveyor belt, right? Every lid has to be in the same spot. Every box has to be in the same spot, or else the machine can't actually put the lid on the cup. And as soon as one lid is out of order, the whole machinery stops, and then you're losing money. And that lid out of order would be like a client demanding something that you don't actually usually deliver to your client. And pricing yourself to be more of a boutique photographer, or a photographer that would address your clients in a manner to help them having the pictures they've always dreamed of on the wall, would be more sustainable than trying to get 400 people in the door as fast as you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you would have to have the marketing reach to actually get that many clients, and you would have to have the time and the energy, and like there's so many factors that I don't think a lot of photographers have thought of to be able to do it. Because when I do like a pricing breakdown with a photographers, they're always like, I have to charge how much to be able to make a living or to make the money that I want to. They're like completely shocked so many times. And I think that's really like off-putting to many. Like I didn't know that I had to charge this much just to have like the money to pay myself. I don't even know where to go from here. So I think that's scary to a lot of people, especially if they're quite new. Do you think is there a right way? Because I think both of us have kind of started off in kind of the wrong way, starting off and doing ourselves a little bit of a disservice. So is there a right way to start as a photographer, or to start again if you want to do things right from now on?
Oh my God. I don't think there's any one right way. And with the experience I have now, I can tell you what not to do. Do not just stick your finger up in the air and pull a number out of your ass and say that I'm going to do this. This sounds like a fair amount of money, because you are not your client. And that is not a way to run a business. Talked to a photographer a few weeks ago, and she was like, there's always most women. I don't know why, but I would say 90% of my clients are women. 10% are men, and 5 of those won't listen. So now I was mean, but that's the way it is. Why listen to the 38-year-old woman when you can trash her instead? But then I get stern. But you have to make sure that you have some sort of level of financial knowledge. I'm not saying go do a bachelor's degree in economics, but you have to try to figure out how much it actually costs to run a business. Like in Norway, you know that 25 of everything you earn is not your money. It's tax, goes directly back to the state. And of course, that is like the simplified version. Of course, that you get write-offs and everything like that when you buy things. And some services are actually tax-free and stuff. But as like a solid base, you can just tell yourself in your head that 25 of this money are not my money. They're gone. They don't even exist. Don't even know why they came into the bank account in the first place. Just poof, gone. And then if you are employed somewhere, then your employer has to pay 14% employee tax. So if you're working in a single business, you can always say, okay, I'll take those 14%, and poof, that's gone. Money you never see. So now you're up to what, 39%? So let's just add that up to 40%, like 40% money. It goes towards pension, goes towards insurance, and goes towards tax. Poof, money gone. And then you want to save some money. So maybe you should like say that 5% of everything you earn is actually money that goes towards equipment. You have to save up. Things do break. Worst thing I see is a female photographer, and it's always the females, that are so happy because someone bought them a freaking Canon something D mirrorless thingamabob for $5,000. I'm like, that is really not a way to do business, honey. Like having to rely on your husband buying you a camera for you to do business? Seriously? The other thing I kind of hate to read is all those, I have to ask my husband if it's okay for me to buy a camera for my business. I'm like, your husband has nothing to do with your business. Your spouse are not going to butt into your business. You do your business. You make sure you make money. And if he or she is not a partner in your business, they have nothing ever to say. They are not to determine which workshops you're going to and anything. Anyways, I could rant on with that forever. I'm lucky enough to live with someone that actually knows how a business works, so he doesn't ask questions as long as I don't mortgage the house. That is a rule. Do not put extra mortgage on your house. So you're up to 45% now, right? And then you want to save up some money to go on holiday, right? In Norway, if you want 5 weeks holiday, you should save 12.4% of every paycheck so that you can actually go on holiday. So what I like to do is actually calculate that into my pricing. So I say that, okay, I want a fairly long holiday. I'm going to take those 12.4% and add them to every business I do. And I know that I'm adding it to my turnaround, but I'd rather do that than to my weekly salary or monthly salary, because it creates some sort of system for me in my head. And that's how I do it. And I know that that also secures me a fairly high amount. If you compare it to actually just doing it on the salary, it adds up a little bit more, which secures me if I should be sick or if I need some time off that is not calculated into those weeks of vacation. And then all of a sudden we were at 45%. Now we're at 57.4%. That's almost 60% of that money that you never even see. And you haven't even started paying your bills yet. You just paid tax, income tax, you've paid your insurance, you saved up money for new gear, you saved up for holidays, and if you have to take a sick leave or you have to take leave because someone else is sick, and you haven't even paid one bill yet. And then all of a sudden 5,000 kroners or $500 isn't all that much money if you think about it. So if I was starting up again, I would love for someone just hitting me on the top of my head and say that you have to calculate all those things into the equation. You have to make sure that your pricing is on point. And the other thing that I see is that, and it's quite sad because this is actually always women. When I ask them how much do you want your salary to be for a year, I have met maybe 2 or 3 women that actually said something around the average salary of a person in Norway. Everyone sits 100, 200,000 Norwegian kroners, which is $10,000, $20,000 below average salary in Norway. The average in Norway is about 500, 550,000 Norwegian kroners, which is like $55,000. And the women say, I'll be happy with 300.
Mm.
And then I asked the $1 million question. If you were to have children, or if you have children, would you be able to pay everything you have to pay with those 300,000 Norwegian kroners? Will you be able to take care of yourself and your kids on that salary? And the answer in Norway is no. You are actually setting yourself up for welfare. You can apply for welfare benefits if your salary is that low in Norway.
Sorry to interrupt Kine again, but you don't want to miss this. After almost 2 years of almost all workshops, courses, and education being online, it's time to meet in real life. Kine and I are planning a cabin trip workshop where we'll serve lots of snacks, hang out in our most comfy clothes, and work long hours. If you want to know more, head to the show notes to find the link.
And then again, we see women having to rely on their partners to actually feed their family. And if their partners leave, they're screwed. They cannot buy the house. You cannot buy an apartment in Norway with a salary of 300,000. And there's no chance, because the banks only give you this and this amount of loan. And what is it now? 4 times your salary? That would be somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 million. That buys you a den in Norway? Well, it does, or a rundown farm as I live in. But then you'll have to be willing to actually live on a rundown farm 25 minutes from the nearest city center, which would require you to have a car. Cars are spendy. And if you don't have the money, you need to buy an old car, which is also spendy because they break. So whatever you do, just make sure that you are calculating on a wealthy base where you can actually earn a living minimum. Like, stop thinking that you can survive on 300,000 a year, because you can't.
I think it can be hard though when you're starting out and you don't actually know how much time it takes, and you don't really know what you can expect, like because it's easy to calculate. It's possible to calculate how what your rate should be, and then okay, this is what it should be, but you don't know how easy it's going to be to actually get enough inquiries or to get enough jobs to fill that amount you figured out that you need to have. So I completely understand how it's hard in the beginning.
It's super hard in the beginning, but as we talked about earlier, if you start out low, you'll always get the low cost clients that are looking for bargains. And you have to ask yourself, do you want to be the dollar store, or do you want to be Gucci? Or do you want to be someone in between? Do you want to be Nordstrom's, or do you want to be JCPenney?
But is it possible for someone starting out to start out being Gucci? Because at least a lot of the photographers I talk to, they think they have to work their way up. Like, I'm here now, I can't really make a living, but I can see myself in 3 years, I can charge more than I do now.
But then again, you have to dig yourself out of that hole. If you use 3 years of your life to market towards a client that is not ideal, that doesn't like to spend money, that's always looking for a bargain, and then all of a sudden you're gonna raise your prices, double it up, because you realize that I'm not making any money, I need to put food on the table. And then you have to start the marketing all over again because you have a new target client. You're not even
exactly.
They may never, that target client may never have even looked at you and thought of you being a possibility for a photographer for them, because they've looked at your prices and they become scared of them. Because we know that things that cost below average are probably below average in quality. Or if it's not below average in quality, it's probably because it's come out of some shady kids industry thing in Bangladesh, right? Which is why I buy certain clothes from certain places that cost a lot more. It's not designer clothes, it's just sustainable, which makes it cost more, because I know that the fabrics are sustainable, the workers get paid. I know that some of the factories are actually in the Nordic countries, and that makes it cost more, right?
Yeah.
And some clients are like that. Some clients are me, and I am. That is the clients I like to work with. They know they are environmentally aware, and they know what they want, and they want to save the world. And some clients don't give a rat's ass, right? And some clients buy everything on Europrice or Nille or the dollar store, and then they don't really care about who suffers when they buy things. And they are always looking for a bargain. And if that's your ideal client, fine, but that's not going to make you money. And the people that are more like me, that would pay to know that something is sustainable, they're not even going to look at you twice. But we are probably the people with money. It's kind of like when I paid a fair amount of money to get my birth photographed. And I never even thought twice about paying. It was a fair amount of money. I had to divide the invoice in two to be able to pay it. Had to but who cares? It had a lot of value then. It has a lot of value now. And it's an investment I've never regretted ever. And those are maybe the clients that you're looking for, the people that see your value. And then you can say, well, it's hard. Well, yes, it is hard. It's super hard hitting your ideal client. It is hard work, and you have to figure out who you want to be and how you're going to portray that in social media or on your newsletters or whatever strategy that you choose to do, or network building or whatever you want to do. But you have to remember that you are never your ideal client, though.
Definitely. But this is all good for starting out. But what about in the long run? What works in the long run? Is it the same things, or are there other things you? Because if you want to be a photographer for 10 years or 20 years or for the rest of your life, it's not enough to think that this works now. You have to kind of set yourself up for success down the line as well.
I think that in the long run, people underestimate the value of word of mouth. And you have to make sure that your ideal client is actually happy with the images that they get. And as you said, like in your first wedding, what happened is that the bride and groom got a bargain. They told all their other friends, which also wanted a bargain, the next year and the year after, and maybe even the year after that. Because the rumors, they continue, right? They go forward and you're left behind. And then you have to tell all those clients that, yes, well, that was the first year I did photography. Now my prices are tripled. I'm sorry. and I think that word of mouth is super important. And to be present in your local community, you should never underestimate being present in your local community. People buy from people they like. Like here, I'm going to photograph. We just moved here to my little village, and I'm going to photograph a kindergarten in the spring because someone in the kindergarten likes me as a person, and I sing in the same choir. And so all of a sudden I get a shot of photographing that kindergarten. Of course, if I do a crappy job, they'll probably call someone else next year, but at least I get the chance.
Yeah.
Hopefully I won't screw it up.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Who knows? Hopefully. Hopefully I'll remember how to set the flashes correctly that time. I've done a fairly good job earlier. And try to be active on social media with the other businesses around you. You have to remember that, okay, maybe you're not a business photographer. Maybe you don't want branding sessions or anything like that. But remember that the people running the local kid clothing stores, they probably have kids, or they know someone with kids. And if you on your photography account actually follows them and comments on things that they put out there, your name is the name that's going to be stuck in their head, whether they like it or not. They'll probably say, if they're at a party, someone says, oh, I'm looking for a maternity photographer. Do you know anyone? Odds are some of them, if you're active, will say, I followed this one on Instagram. Give me a second. I'll find her. I think she does a beautiful job. Maybe they like your job just because they think that you're nice even. So it's like and it's always, you have to remember always that it's easier to get paid from earlier clients than to get new clients in the door. Reoccurring business is definitely something to figure out how to market yourself within. Maybe that could be like a coupon for your next photography, or maybe once a year you send out a special offer for earlier clients, like I'll do your Christmas cards for next to nothing just to keep that bond between you and the client warm. Doesn't cost you much to like do a mini session for 10 minutes and a Christmas card, right? Just set one day that is like your client day, or even just send them Christmas cards like Merry Christmas, thank you for your business in 2022. Or send them like one sheet calendar with a picture of their family on it. If you print yourself, that cost is like 15 Norwegian kroners for you to do. If you can just print it and put it in some mailbox, or or give them candy every time you see them. Candy works. Chocolate always works. Or if you have a client that's like spent a fair amount of money with you, just treat them to something. Do something that makes them feel special at some level. It's not a very Norwegian thing to do, but then again, if you do it, maybe you'll stand out.
Is there something that you can recommend the person that's listening to do to be able to just do things one bit better when it comes to their pricing? Like, what's one thing that the listener can do to price their work better?
One thing: sign up for someone's courses. No, one thing. It has to be one thing that doesn't cost anything. It has to be one thing that you can do yourself, and that have to be, I think it would have to be to figure out the salary you would need to sustain yourself if you are alone with one child. Calculate for the future. If there is ever one child costs a shitload of money. And if you are single with no children, bonus for you, right? Don't do that. Well, I don't have these expenses, or I don't have these expenses, so I can be cheaper. That is devaluating your work. You have to set a standard. Like, okay, to make a sustainable living with one adult and one child, maybe you'll have to have an income of 600,000 Norwegian crowns, $60,000, right? To pay for everything. And just base everything off of that amount of money. And figure out how much you really want to work. Because working 14, 16, 20 hours a day, it's not worth it. And people that say it's worth it, they're either psychopaths or narcissists. I said it. I said it.
You did say it.
I did say it. I'm sorry. You can edit that out if you want to.
I probably won't.
I'll own it.
I know you will.
There are people out there that is actually more happy at work than they are at home with wife, husband, kids. And all praise to them if they can get that family relation to work. But you have to be honest with yourself. What kind of person are you? What kind of person are you? What kind of life do you want to lead? Like me, I figure out that I wanted to live. I don't want neighbors. I don't want to see people in my everyday life. I want to live at the cabin. You know that people have stressful lives, and they go to their cabins to relax, find inner peace, right? I want that relaxation and inner peace to be my everyday life. So we bought a rundown farm in the middle of nowhere, and I love it. It's the best thing I ever did.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
I want exactly what you have. Yeah, I want that life too. I've thought about that so many times. I don't understand why people buy cabins. Why don't they make their homes as comfortable and as relaxing as that? I don't understand it. I want that life, not the place I have to travel to get away from my life. I don't understand that.
No, I want to live in my life as I want to live my life, and then I can go to Oslo if I want anything. It's a mere like 2.5 hours drive. Who cares? I can listen to podcasts and music and audiobooks.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you recommend doing to build a sustainable business?
Build your knowledge. Don't fall for the temptation of doing what everyone else is doing, because that is not going to set you apart from everyone else. It's going to make you mainstream. You do you, but you have to make sure that your work is up to par. And don't just look at competition and figure out what they're charging and then charge the same, but actually do the math, because you don't know how the other people came to set their pricing. Maybe they are in the same situation and did exactly what you did. They looked at everyone else, they found an average and then put themselves below the average. And then the next person does the same thing and the next person does the same thing. And all of a sudden, no one's making money. Figure out what sets you aside from everyone else, because that makes it harder to compare you to everyone else, I think. And it's important to actually stand out.
It is important. I think a lot of people don't realize how important it is. I think they think that it's better to just see what everyone else is doing and kind of do something similar because it's safer, I think.
But it makes it really easy to compare you to everyone else. It's kind of like if you want to sell digital files or products, it doesn't matter. Just make sure that you name it differently than everyone else. Because
don't use the name from the manufacturer.
Do not use the name from your manufacturer. Figure out your own names for your products. And if everyone else is selling digitals in packets of 5, then you should sell them in packets of 3s or singles or 6 or 7s. And I remember I started talking about that like a year or 2 ago, and all of a sudden everyone's selling it in 3s and 6s. So now I have to change everything up. Because everyone else is selling it in 3s and 6s, and
that's the price of teaching others how to do things.
People just copy everything.
Where can the listener go to keep learning from you, Kine?
Instagram. They can do kickass_Kine, or you can go to photograph Kine Bakke. I'm there too. And it's actually quite fun because kickass_Kine is an account that I use for coaching Instagram. And I started it, just a fun fact, backstory thing. I started it just to figure out if you can build a business solely on Instagram. Turns out you can. That's kind of, and then I did a course, and then I had to set up a web page just to get a form out so that people could sign up and read about the course. So I do have a web page, which I don't update much because I still rely on Instagram. It's kind of fun. After Christmas 2020, I did a Christmas calendar in 2020, and the feed of the Instagram account has more or less been dead in 2021, because then I wanted to figure out, can I just do stories? Can you run a business only on stories? Turns out you can. So now I'm like, I do stories once in a while, and now I've done less and less stories, like the second half of 2021, and now I get messages and mentions on Facebook. So now it's like I do business mostly based on mentions I get on Facebook, in Facebook groups, and on direct messages on Instagram. So that actually works too. It is cool. And that's like the marketeer in me that is, I need to try things. I need to figure out, can it actually work? But then again, I think my conclusion is that yes, you can do sales through direct messages and not so much stories and feed if you already have a name and a brand that people trust. So I wouldn't recommend starting there, but you can definitely do business solely relying on Instagram, especially if you're doing like coaching and stuff like that. That's kind of interesting. But kickass_Kine.
Noted. Cool. I'll make sure to add a link in the show notes so that it's easier to just click a link than to look you up. Thanks so much, Kine, for this conversation. I'm sure that everyone who's listened have learned a lot from you. And now they know where to go to find more.
And you can always come visit in Trysil if you can find the farm.
Is it hard to find?
The GPS sends people in strangest directions I've ever seen.
Ah, I see. Well, let's hope someone finds the way to your farm. And in the meantime, they can find you on Instagram and check the show notes for a link to our upcoming workshop. Thanks for listening to Sustainable Photography. Head over to Instagram at Ingvild Kolnes to tell me what you want future episodes to be all about. Check out the show notes over at ingvildkolnes.com/podcast. You can learn more about the Sustainable Photography program and sign up for the waitlist there. To get more of this content, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your support makes all the difference. Talk soon.